Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome members to this meeting of the Economy, Infrastructure and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee today on Monday, 17th of November 2025 at 2 p.m. Usual reminders, please, everybody, for mobile phones on silent and laptops turned to silent as well. And I'd now like to invite Jacob to give apologies, please.
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, Committee. Apologies received from Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Jacob. Are there any declarations of interest? None recorded. Thank you very much. Moving on, I'd like to resolve that the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, 23rd of October 2025 be confirmed as correct record and signed by the Chair. Please could I invite someone to move this motion? Thank you. Please could I invite someone to second this motion? Thank you very much indeed. I'll just... Thank you very much. Just a slight change in the running order for everybody to take note of. We're going to move the running order so that the report of the Network Management Working Group takes place as the second agenda item and move straight on to the Community Learning Service Annual Self-Assessment 2024-25. So could I invite the appropriate Cabinet member to present on this subject? Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Before we get into the detail of this, I'd like to start off with a short video from our some learner voices to show the real worth for what this brings to you all. If we can play that video, please. hope that gives you just a glimpse at the breadth of services across all communities that this committee leads on. It really is quite amazing and great work that we bring at every level of society. And that's why here we're to ask you to scrutinise this performance and the quality assurance of community learning, and they offer recommendations for future improvements. The self-assessment report will be shared with Ofsted after committee review. The Community Learning Service provides education training for adults across Staffordshire, focusing on those who may find it hard to access more traditional learning methods, for example, college independent learning providers. The adult learners who attend courses tend to be parents and carers, adults with learning difficulties and disabilities, including mental ill health. It's also there for refugees, asylum seekers in the UK, those with lawful status. The care leavers, adults with low skills in English and maths, adults below level 2 in standard education, adults on low income or in receipt of state benefits, unemployed seeking employment, employed looking to develop their career, adults who have not taken part in learning for at least 3 years. The programme includes community learning, multiple everyday maths courses and outreach activities delivered by 2 direct delivery teams and 25 contracted partners. Ofsted rated the service as a good provider in February 23. The Matrix Standard for Information and Advice was achieved in February 2024. The service received 1.4 million from the Department of Education and Community Learning and 1.2 million for multiple courses. Self-assessment judgments are made against the Ofsted Inspection Framework 2019. The self-assessment period is for the academic year 2024 to 25, 1st of August 2024 to 31st of July. We have judged ourselves as following: leadership and management, outstanding; quality of education, outstanding; personal development, outstanding; behaviour and attitude, goods; safeguarding, effective. Key improvements for this year include improving attendance, retention and achievement across the identified areas, increased participation, increased in provision that develops essential skills and family learning. The headline performance consists of 322 community learning courses delivered from achieving 3,085 enrolments, 390 multiple courses achieving 2,740 enrolments, 3,982 outreach engagements. It's exceeding the planned delivery across Staffordshire for our residents. Attendance, retention, pass and achievement rates across both programmes are well monitored. Officers apply relative strategies to improve and maintain and report at least 2/3 of learners attended 90% of their course. In the current year, improvement is seen in attendance, retention and achievement rates. The board's strengths are highly effective partnership working, innovative teaching practices, including the use of AI, strong impact on learners, personal development, confidence and community engagement. Leadership, management are outstanding, and a collaborative and inclusive culture. The safeguarding is robust and embedded in all provision. Areas for improvement for the current year, 2025 to 26. To promote belonging and feel included to further improve attendance, retention and achievement. Integrate critical thinking and AI literacy into all learning for better preparedness for employment, further learning and safeguarding. Extended partnerships, working and co-designing curriculum with stakeholders. Leadership and management ensure the curriculum reflects both local priorities, remains learner-centred and responsive. The best practices shared widely throughout our partners to achieve better outcomes for our learners. Leadership, fostering a collaborative and inclusive culture. Commitment to continual professionalism development across partners and our officers. A targeted strategy is deployed effectively, reaching diverse learner groups. Quality of education provides flexible and inclusive courses offering face-to-face and online. Excellent engagement with the community, delivering in green space projects in Cannock Chase, Hensford Park, John Hall Gardens, and learner involvement in open days. Learner satisfaction is high. The progression and impact of our learners is strong. Among learners not working and not seeking work, at the start, 28% progressed into a positive destination. For example, into employment, further learning or volunteering. Among those actively seeking work at the start, 40% successfully progressed into a positive destination. Learners report improved confidence, well-being, readiness for work. Additional benefits include meeting new people, gaining the confidence and improved health. Learners say courses have helped them with their mental health, motivation, social engagement. The learners appreciate the inclusive and supportive environment, with many reporting a sense of belonging. Some learners have progressed to volunteering roles, with one partner receiving the King's Award for voluntary service. Many learners are motivated to continue learning outside the classroom, sharing knowledge and applying skills in daily life. There's notable improvement in attendance and retention. Attendance stands at 88%, with 2/3 of learners attending 90%. This is a dramatic improvement and will continue upwards within the current year. The career guidance is integrated across all courses, including support from National Career Services, Staffordshire Jobs and Careers. Learner outcomes are exceptionally positive, with a high achievement, satisfaction and progression rates. The programme fosters personal development, confidence and community engagement, while also supporting diverse and disadvantaged groups. Learner feedback and survey data confirm the impact on well-being, employability and social inclusion within innovative and independent learning strongly encouraged throughout. Can I just add with some of these? We even did a Care Leavers Award last week for younger coming on in, met with many of the private providers as well. I met with quite a few of companies out about, and many of these people, the benefits for these programs are exponential, far-reaching than what you initially see from each individual person. The health benefits, the employability and the economic benefits, the lowering of crime, the social cohesion, the community benefits far outreaches just each individual learning progress. The percentage, our outstanding record, is something we should champion and really push forward to carry on and improve on where we can. I'll open up to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Some very interesting areas, and something I think is, as you say, hugely important for the overall development of individuals. I'd like to open the floor to any questions as a result of that presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, Councillor Murray, you've highlighted the great benefits that these courses can have on people. I was just wondering about accessibility. Could a homeless person actually access these courses and hopefully through learning and interactions get himself or herself back on the right track?
There is even more ones coming on forward. I will pass it over to some of our officers, but we are actually bringing in a test bed for AI that will really help with that, with people who cannot leave the home that then wish to. We're having a big push nationally as well, I've noticed, for disabled people to work from home, those that wish to. This all helps with these processes. But with actual access, any of the officers got any details on accessibility and learning? Please.
Yes, thank you for the question. Our provision is accessible to all adults aged 19 plus, and especially those with diverse needs and those that are experiencing difficulties, especially like with the cost of living and different things like that. But homelessness, yes, they can attend our sessions. They often have support networks, support from other professionals, so we can use, you know, addresses that way, you know, as a place where they reside as well within Staffordshire, and help that individual to move forward and access further services that we would provide. You know, we work with social prescribers, with GPs as well, and then through to employment as well with our Staffordshire Jobs and Careers as well. So there's a lovely route there for someone that they can take. And for some people that might be 6 months, or it could be a 12-month journey as well. And we can support them throughout that period.
Yeah, thank you for that. It was very informative. Thank you.
Any further questions from the floor?
There we go. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I think it's a really, really good report. Obviously, like to thank all the officers and obviously previous cabinet members that were involved in this over the year up to July. And I think really we look to the future, and there's a lot of outstanding judgments, isn't there, on this? But there's a couple which are good and effective. Again, they're not bad judgments, are they? But is there anything you can update us on the safeguarding one? Because that's really important, isn't it? Obviously, only effective there. How do we get to outstanding in that? And also, behaviour and attitudes with learners are good. What's the plan to try and improve that? I know that's very difficult. And so any questions from either the portfolio, any answers from the portfolio or from the officers would be great there. Just like also to add, good to see Newcastle and Stafford College on the screen there. They do great work, don't they? And some of these courses are really beneficial to local people. Thank you.
I will pass that over to our officers who have done all the work. I mean, I've been to Newcastle and Stafford College and with Stoke College. The amount of work they are doing with this, it really deserves applaud. And the private providers that are giving it. It's a beacon for everybody. But I will pass that over to our officers.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The terminology around safeguarding being effective is an Ofsted terminology. So really, our safeguarding is outstanding. It's just that you need to make sure that you've got all effective processes in place, and we've got embedded early help and different things like that, and knowing the thresholds and when we report in a safeguarding concern as well. So all those processes are in place. It's just the terminology around it. In terms of things around good, where we put for behaviour, I'm going to hand that over to my quality team to talk you through that one. Okay? Thank you, Claire.
Thank you very much. I'm Claire Roberts, Quality and Performance Manager for the Community Learning Service Adult Skills. Overall, we've judged the behaviour and attitudes of learners overall as good. I think feeding into that, there's a number of different elements, and really there are very many exceptionally, very high attitudes, in particular around the motivation of learners, the pride in their work, their engagement in sessions, and the motivation to progress that the learners have. So we see a huge amount of really, really good practice and very, very good attitudes from the learners, which is all down to the skill of the tutors in generating those that environment where learning is, the learners can really see what they're going to be able to get out of the courses. The attendance is one area where we've set ourselves a very high key performance indicator target of 90%. So that's already a high target, if you like, and we're slightly below that. So the area for improvement, or what we want to work on, is really focusing on that to make sure that where we've got good practice that is shared right across the board, so there's real consistency, and to support those individuals where they very often have difficult personal circumstances or challenges within their daily lives that mean they've missed a session, just really supporting those individuals consistently across the board to make sure that they can still catch up on anything that they've missed, complete their course and achieve.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'll go there first. Yeah.
Thank you for the report. Just two questions regarding this. Is that looking at I think it's the demographics, that mostly this is made up of females. I assume men, it's harder for men to get onto this because usually we're against more learning, and females usually more into learning and stuff like that. How are we trying to get more men into this? And well, that's my first question.
I think one of the key metrics that I saw that offhand, our male intake was 40%, which is far higher than the national average. And I think that's a great accolade to the courses that are on offer. And I think a lot of it is just down to mentality of that. Is there anything else the officers would like to add? Because these are the experts in this field.
We do know from practice that we've been involved with in the last few years, especially through Multiply, male adult learners like a skill that they can learn and use immediately. So we've done a lot of that kind of provision as well, but also working with employers. That has been a way to encourage and motivate males to attend our courses as well. Taking learning to them at the workplace has been really important, and things that they can use in their career at work and then help them progress, staying in the same job. They might have been struggling with elements of that particular job role, or it might be that they've got career aspirations to progress as well. So maths was a big hook, really, and we thought that actually that'd be quite scary for some adults, but male adult learners have engaged well with that, and then we've actually taken that practice that we've learned from the maths provision over to our community learning courses as well, and then we've seen an increase again this year, 28% on males as well, which is really good, again above the benchmark for community learning.
Thanks for that. It's good to hear that we are actually above the national average, and we're actually trying to get men to actually learn more and trying to get in there, because I assume it's hard for men to learn. They want to physically get onto something and, I don't know, fix something usually. That does lead on to another question about some of the learning that goes on. Is that, yeah, you learn about basic, math skills. Do they learn about like communication, like interview skills on this course also? Because I think that's another core that could be looked at in the future, because that's a good skill to have, is like how do you do well in the interview, and that really jumps you along. If you do well, that gives you great opportunities.
There we go, thank you. Hi, I had the pleasure of doing one of the visits to one of the providers you saw on the clip earlier on. We do lots of different subjects and subject areas that learners can engage with. They provide the initial hook for people to engage or re-engage in learning, which is fantastic. But an equine session I visited last week not only developed key skills within that equine industry, but the wider skills that were being developed were fantastic. So, like you mentioned, employability skills, communication skills, leadership, teamwork, etc. And those learners were being prepared to then progress into a volunteering position, either at that particular provider or elsewhere in volunteering as well. So they are the hardest to reach learners in this particular provider, and so it's going to be sort of small supported steps into employment, but those courses are very much delivered with that focus in mind, with that long-term goal. How long it takes is going to be very different for each learner, but it is developing those wider skills.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to what Nick said. So the value of tailored learning is that it's tailored to the learners themselves. So, for example, if you have a learner who comes onto a digital course, the tutor takes a lot of time to get to know that learner's needs and interests. So that learner might have an employability issue, and part of that is making sure then that their needs are met. So, for example, on a general introduction to digital course, the learner then could have a look at how to CV write, how to look at jobs via the internet, how to make sure they're safely applying for jobs on the internet. So it's entirely tailored for those learners. So that's how we hit lots of metrics as well in those ways.
Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to hear how it works, and it's good to hear.
Hi. I don't know who this is going to, but I'm sure one of you will take it. Are there any plans to extend the measurement of the long-term outcomes of the programmes that we have?
Yes, hi, I'll reply to that. So at the moment we survey learners at the end of the course through a questionnaire survey, type survey, and then we also then follow that up with a telephone call survey, which takes place usually about 6 months a year after they've completed the course to find out what they're doing at the moment. We then use that data, that research is carried out by a company that is commissioned by several, a number of similar organisations, so that they can provide us with some benchmarking data around the impact on the courses and how that compares to other organisations. But we're also then looking nationally at the data that's published nationally on that, and it's a piece of work that the sector is doing at the moment in terms of making that longer term outcome and work related outcomes more accessible, so that organisations like ourselves can access that data and use that more effectively to benchmark ourselves against others. So it's a piece of work that's ongoing at the moment to look at how we're able to collect that data, how we're able to use it so we can, as I say, benchmark ourselves effectively and track those outcomes for learners.
So it's about six months then after they've finished. That's, I guess, is that in the industry norm, or is
Yeah, that's the sort of sector standard, if you like, and that's how we operate at the moment. But we will be reviewing that to see to make sure that we can really get the most effective and the most useful data from that survey. At the moment we ask what people are doing at the moment, which might be employment, it might be other short courses and so on, and we feel really that moving forward we'd like to explore a little bit more nuance, really, I suppose, in those responses and how the course has really impacted on what people are doing now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may add on to that, coming up next year is a big piece of work that involves everybody here, is Get Britain Working scheme. It's a very big piece of work, be delivered through Connect to Work. This will really boost. This looks at people who are long-term, unemployed, out of work through health, NEETs, care leavers. It goes through all age groups, all demographic, those who are just off the system. It really works in a big way. It will bolster this, work alongside it. It will give extra pathways, extra funding. It's all central government funding as well. It will really help across so many fronts and bring up so many levels. Like I say, it's more than just the singular person outcome. The connective levels, the outreach this brings, far, far greater than just finding somebody a job. The community aspects, the social cohesion, the reduction in crime, the benefits to health, and therefore the demand on the health service is immense from this. And some of the points with how people enjoy the course, that's socialising, that just getting out there, learning how to do an interview. Well, it's pretty hard to go to an interview if you struggle to enter a room with people. And these first early steps that make it's the only difference they need sometimes at first. And then these shorter courses, mid-term and even long-term courses, these are the outcomes, the benefits that come afterwards. Because it's not necessarily straight into work. It can be an extra course, a longer term, a higher qualification, and then into work. These are the benefits it brings straight away. It's so many levels, and more is coming. There's extra programs, extra funding coming on through that will help thousands of people of all ages and demographics.
Thank you. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you. Marty's more or less answered. I'm just thinking, I stood a little bit at school on me. I could do the physical side. It was the, like you said, the writing side, the mathematics side and all that. So are we doing anything to encourage that sort of person who's probably be brilliant driving a digger or welding or whatever, but they can't fill the forms in to get to that stage? Because if you look at some of the good jobs out there, like I say, welding's a good one. JCB are always after welders, aren't they? But they've got to pass the test, haven't they? And to pass the test, they need some. So I was wondering if that's, and like get on back of what Marty's saying, get Britain working. To me, that would be a way of looking at it. Even the road gangs need a qualification to stand on the road now, don't they? So it'd be not a physical, that one. So I'm just thinking if we could look down that route, I'd appreciate that. Not so much, well, a bit of everything, but more hands-on for the people who just need that side of things. Thank you.
Already in this, we have people who do carpentry. We have people going onto farms. You know, that's one of my big passions. We have people going to have a Cannock Chase. A lot of the work we've done to get Britain working with the care leavers I've done work with, it's the whole point of these introductory courses at first. It then leads to a positive outcome. That is that extra qualification that leads them to go and get the job where they naturally have that skill set. They are naturally skilled with their hands, but have lacked that, like you say, to get that qualification that you now need to go in there. This is the door that opens up to the whole new world for people. It just opens it all up. They can now step forward and go, I now need that positive outcome. I'm going to do that extra course. I am now that welder. I am now that driver. I am now that carpenter, that plumber. I am now that teacher. And yes, we've seen that level. I actually have a personal friend who's become a nurse, who's gone through some of these courses over the years. Anything is possible through this. It just takes the introductory level. A lot of the time it's been told you can't, when actually there's your room. Go for it. And that's what this is delivering. Is there anyone else want to add some more points?
Thank you, yeah. Also, very much from my experience as well, we also see learners who do have high-level skills, carpentry, metalwork, etc. But through, life's taken a turn and they've been disadvantaged in many ways, and a lot of that is their confidence, and they might not have left the home for a long period of time. So they have the skill set, but it's about then supporting them with the wider skills and building their confidence up to then have the confidence to say, right, I have a great CV, I've got the experience, and now I'm in the right place to then go out and apply for work as well. So, our courses, our learners, a lot of the learners don't like it or have never had a positive experience from a very traditional learning environment. And we offer a very untraditional learning environment, but a fantastic learning environment like farms and, such like. So it provides a space where they don't have to feel nervous about coming back to learning their needs. It's a tailored learning. Through thorough initial assessment, we'll find out what those gaps are and then support them and build their confidence back as well and put them in a place then to apply for jobs.
Thank you. I do have a question myself, if that's okay. I'm glad to see in the evaluation you've identified some key areas for improvement. And the big one there I see is creating a learning culture, because a good learning culture develops a good working culture. I guess it's a bit of work in progress because it's one of the key areas for improvement, but I'd be interested to hear feedback in how you actually go about creating a learning culture, please, of somebody. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It's really important to us that our adult learners feel that they belong. They are Staffordshire County Council learners. We want them to be part of us as well, and we've got a responsibility to protect them and provide them with a really good and outstanding learning experience. So we want to engage with them more, them to have more of a voice, be able to contribute to co-production with our courses and what they need, how we talk and survey around our provision as well, how we create documents, even like a learner handbook. They are going to be designed by our adult learners as well, so they know that they belong to us. And then learners also belong to the partners that we contract with, our suppliers as well. And that's where a lot of the belonging happens, I think, and they need to understand that they're part of a wider network of adult learners across Staffordshire, and then how that impacts on them as an adult moving forward as well. Their aspirations, raising those aspirations, opening doors for them, seeing that potential, And, you know, for some of our adult learners, that becomes life-changing as well. So I want them to be more involved in that sort of journey, if that makes sense. And what we would like to see from that sense of belonging is that we'll see an improvement in that attendance as well. Where someone every day, you know, when you might turn up for a session and adult learning, you might not be having the best of days, but someone asks you if you're okay. They use your name. Have you had something to eat today? You know, just the little things. It means a lot to our adults. So yeah, hopefully they feel as if they all belong a little bit more. And we see some improvements on that attendance and retention there.
Thank you. It's great to hear. Sorry, did you have a question?
I just wanted to ask a question about how you cater for autistic learners, because oftentimes they can be particularly brilliant in certain areas, and how you actually, you know, is there any way that you can tap into that or discover what their talents are? Thank you.
Yeah, I know Nick and Zoe have touched on this around their initial assessment, and I've mentioned our partners that we contract with. That's their specialism, that knowing adult learners with diverse needs and disabilities. And they are very good at identifying and supporting those adults with those additional needs. And they tend to do that by actually engaging with them in discussion. What support do they need? What strengths do they know that they've got? What would they like to develop as well? And putting those strategies, known strategies around teaching and learning in place that work with, you know, autistic individuals as well. I think just recently as well, we did some comms as well, and gave people the opportunity to talk to us around the challenges that they have, challenges around adult learning, but also challenges around employment. And actually, they were saying they are very talented, and actually employers should give them more of a chance, and they are putting a lot of effort into developing themselves. And it was such a powerful story. It was only sort of like a minute long, but it captured the essence of that individual and the challenges that they have. And we really need to appreciate those challenges and make sure that we put it in all of our delivery. I feel our community learning team, that whole culture is very focused on an adult learner. They put them at the centre of everything that we do, an individual. And with our teaching and learning advisors and our partners that we contract, and that professionalism and that expertise, they're very well looked after and listened to as well. Again, they get lots of opportunities and doors open for them.
Thank you.
Any further questions, or are we all done there? I'd really like to thank you for your input. It's very, very interesting indeed, and it's all good to hear. As a committee, going forward, I recommend that we look to scrutinise the performance and quality assurance of the commissioned and direct delivery community learning as set out in the annual self-assessment report, and then also offer recommendations for future focus or areas for improvement for the Council's community learning offer. Could I invite someone to move that motion, please? Second the motion. Thank you very much indeed. Right, we're going to now move on to the report of the Network Management Group. And I don't know if people who aren't involved want to disappear. Please feel free. Not that you're not wanted, of course, but if you do want to disappear, then please please feel free. We'll just wait for a couple of seconds to get people out here. Right, thank you. Just move on to the original item on the agenda. It was item 4, report of the Network Management Group. And Councillor Wyman, you're going to present that to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for moving the item, and apologies for my lateness. I'm delighted. So many people have stayed to hear this. Such an important item, and especially for residents as well, because I know that members will receive a number of emails into their inbox about disruption, and it's certainly high up on the agenda for something that we should tackle. So, first of all, I'd like to thank the officers for their support in producing the report, and also to the members of the working group. I think we have produced some recommendations which will hopefully improve matters. Look, we've all had first-hand experience of disruption of roadworks, and it brings disruption to our daily lives. Not just a nuisance, but they also have an impact on the economy. So it's not just something that is a bit of a niggle, it's something strategic that I think the council should focus on. The area has a statutory framework, so there's not too much that we can tweak in that regard. And there's a balance between access onto the network for utilities, statutory undertakers, versus management of disruption on the network. And sometimes, through discussions with residents especially, that understanding about that balance is not necessarily widely known, which can lead to extreme frustration on behalf of residents. So there is definitely something there about trying to communicate that out to the people that we represent. One of the main points that we explored was around immediate permits, and those which are called urgent or emergency works, and the fact that they and utilities can notify the council 2 hours after the works commence. And what commonly comes across in my inbox is, why have you let, or why have the council let, the utility company operate on that road? And we will say, well, actually, we haven't had notification of those works, and the notification will come 2 hours afterwards. And that means that the authority cannot plan those works in, and it may have already planned other works in that vicinity. So if you add something else, it's going to cause chaos. We could have focused on the root causes of increased disruption. I'll just name a few: ageing assets of utility companies, health and safety fines being unlimited, the Equality Act providing safe alternative footways means that then there's a one-way system or temporary traffic management, an increase in general population and vehicle use. But those things are extremely difficult for the council to control, so we decided that we would focus on things that we can. Those were generally things like policies, procedures, how we hold utilities and others to account, fees, charges, inspections, and operation of the permitting scheme. We generally split it into 2 areas: unplanned works and planned works. And we came up with a series of recommendations, generally to incentivise planned and well-coordinated works, reduce the impact of street works on our busiest routes, robustly hold statutory undertakers and promoters to account for non-compliance, and address capacity and capability constraints and improve efficiency of the traffic and network management team. The working group is asking for this committee's endorsement of the report and the recommendations that we helped produce. We're asking the Cabinet member to consider these and implement those recommendations as soon as possible. But of course, like some of those recommendations, like the lane rental scheme, they will take time to implement. But I truly believe, and I think the working group does, that it will make a huge difference to everyday lives of Staffordshire residents and to our local businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed for that, and thanks to the group for the work that they've put in. Any questions on the basis of that, please?
I've just got a couple of questions actually, but it's interesting because earlier this year, a friend of mine works at Cooper Perry School in Stafford. I think she's the manager there, and she said that she'd actually seen from utilities work and Staffordshire County Council work that it was going to be impossible for anybody to get to the school on the following Monday, and I think she actually. So I guess the question for that is that, you know, will the content of this report help to alleviate that? It's probably number one. And then the second question really is that the Cabinet is already aware of and is working, I think, much of what perhaps has been suggested here. So really, I just wondered from yourself, Councillor Wildman, what specifically from this report do you think will be new findings to the Cabinet?
So on your first question about the school, obviously every situation is different. Sometimes the disruption could be because of planned works, which the officers have had time to think about and plan in. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the way that the works are commissioned and the different utilities that need to be involved, it can cause disruption. I think one of the areas that we looked at was around how those works could be planned in better. And if, for example, there are 2 A roads into a town or close to a school, it wouldn't be appropriate to plan in works on one A road, but have works on the other. So in other words, you don't want 2 sets of roadworks on both A roads at the same time, causing disruption. If, of course, there is one set of works on one road, then the utility company does need access to the highway, and of course the officer team will be looking at how they can reduce the disruption with the works that they have in place. So that's that. Of course, if those works are unplanned, which is sometimes the case, the authority can't do anything about that specifically, but what it can do is duration down those works to try and reduce the impact. Now, what the working group have been concerned about is where utility companies can sometimes go in under an immediate permit, but the works from if an inspection is carried out may not be considered immediate, and therefore actually what has happened is that the utility company is sort of gaming the system slightly by going in under an immediate, getting a 5-day permit, and then being able to operate on the highway for those 5 days, when actually the works could have been done in 2 days. That's something that the working group have looked at to incentivise those utility companies to reduce the duration of their works down to 1, 2 or 3 days rather than 5 or 6. The way that we can do that is we can increase the fees of immediate permits. So one of the recommendations is to increase the fee from £50 to £60. That sounds like small fry, but there are 12,000 immediate permits per year. So £10 and the 12,000 immediate permits is £120,000 worth of fees. So that's significant. But the main point is around a lane rental scheme. And the lane rental scheme would operate on our most trafficked roads if implemented. And what that would mean is that utility companies would be charged per day a fee, which I believe is about £2,400 a day. And so there will be a huge incentive for utility companies to only take 1 day, 2 days or 3 days rather than the 5 days that they potentially currently do at the moment. So out of all of the recommendations, the lane rental scheme is probably the most significant. It's the one which will generate a lot of work that the authority will need to do in order to implement it. And it won't happen overnight, but probably in 12 to 18 months, if the Cabinet would approve that, then we might be successful in implementing that. I think I've probably answered both of your questions at once. But
I wouldn't say
okay, so the lane rental scheme is something that the working group have.
Is that totally new to Cabinet, the lane rental scheme, I suppose, is the question?
I believe so.
I don't know.
I believe
you
so.
believe so? Okay.
I mean, the working group and ideas about how to reduce disruption is something which has been going on for some time, right? There are ideas that have already been taken forward by Cabinet through the current Cabinet member. The ideas that we have in our working group report are not those ideas. These are separate ideas that we've come up together as a group.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the main drivers of this is not to make things worse, I think, isn't it? It's to make things better for the residents of Staffordshire. That's why I sat on the working group and agree the report go forward. It's just we're not working in an environment where nothing is happening already. We've had the Cabinet's announcement, didn't we, at the summer, the portfolio holder of the 3-month pause. And I remember the risk analysis that was put forward with that. It warned that reducing access to the road network would lead to delays in the start of roadworks, street works. Not only county councils, but also third-party developments such as new housing, fibre, broadband rollout, upgrades to power and water infrastructure, and could even cause legal challenges from utilities and developers. So it's a question to the portfolio holder or the officers in that 3 months since that we're now through that and obviously come out the other side. What was really the effect of that 3 month was those delays and those third-party developments, which I talked about, was there legal challenges from utilities and developers, because that will really educate this working party's report as it goes to Cabinet in the future.
Any further questions on this? Okay, what I'm going to recommend as a committee is that we forward the report to the Cabinet Member for Strategic Highways for consideration.
Excuse me, could I have an answer to the question?
Say again, sorry.
Possibly have an answer to the question. I directed at the portfolio holder or officers.
I don't have the stats in front of me, unfortunately, Councillor Tagg, but what we can do is we can make sure we share that information with you as part of the response from the portfolio holder.
Apologies about that oversight. I was too keen to move on there. So what I'm going to suggest, therefore, is that we refer the report to the Cabinet Member for Strategic Highways for consideration, and that they review it alongside the work that's already taken place and identify any areas that differ, and to report back within 2 months of receipt of the report. Can I have someone to move that motion?
I'll move that motion.
Second the motion. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for the team for putting the report together. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the local transport plan. Oh, sorry, guys, I've got some more guys to disappear there. If I could invite the Cabinet Member to present on the local transport plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for the officers for the astounding piece of work here. It has been going back and forward a number of times already and been reviewed. I would just like to highlight a few things here. It relies on partnerships with National Highways. We're in regular discussion with National Highways, only yesterday with the A5 and also HS2 recently. We need partnerships with GB Railways. We need the right capital from central government, revenue, investment, and the local planning, and again, the National Highways. I would also like to highlight the fact that we have engaged with the community for a response and feedback on the local transport, on the long-term transport plan, because the last time it was done was in 2011. I think it's a wonderful opportunity with the way we have technology, and should we say in a modern world, to really have a deep look at this for the people of Staffordshire. One thing I noted was that 50% of the respondents are over 65. And yet today we were looking at the schools and integrating with young people and the next generation, the ones who are going to benefit, our grandchildren who will be running around the countryside, driving through Staffordshire. So I would like to say that some of the diagrams and the work in here, I hope can go back to the schools and go back to GCSE people and studying and really engage and pull through the younger people to have a look at what we're doing here. And in the future, maybe they will be coming on and making their own views about the long-term transport plan. Perhaps we should also look at page 133, where the focus is supporting Staffordshire and the economy to grow. There's 5 points there to help Staffordshire grow economy and jobs. On page 145, there's an integrated impact assessment, 14 objectives, conserving heritage assets, promoting the long-term economic growth, addressing fear of crime. On page 150, there's a vision, a wonderful diagram of what we're hoping to achieve here. And also, as we say, the Staffordshire being the beating heart of Stafford, the visitor economy plan to Staffordshire. We were talking in here in a meeting about communication. Only last week, I was at a parish council meeting where people and residents came because they were very upset because they felt there hadn't been enough engagement with the house builder on what was happening with the correspondence. They didn't know what was planning in real detail. There was roads being changed and back and forward. There was visitors from Korea also confused about our infrastructure and working things through with road closures, etc. If you also look at the contents of the Staffordshire County Council on page, the main body of the report is the draft local transport plan is on page 138, and I would highlight the fact that there's an overview of the objectives. We look at the review of the 2011 transport plan. We work through rail travel, bus travel, other forms of transport travel, KPIs on that, looking at the current situation, looking at road safety, which is very important, managing the movement of people, the vision of what people will be doing in the future, freight movements, and then there's a number of objectives, the strategic road network, maintaining the local network, freight and deliveries. Again, we're talking about the health of Staffordshire residents, how they get around and enjoy Staffordshire, what the future is with that, trying to get the young generation to walk, cycle, enjoy the countryside of Staffordshire. That's on the behavioural change. There's about land use and transport planning, the current situation, land use planning, town centres. That's a very hot topic for people for what we want with vibrant town centres and what's going on in Stafford Town Centre at the moment and Burton as well. For examples, digital connectivity. We're seeing a lot of, there's a huge potential what we're doing with digital connectivity. There's a separate part on that. And there is what we're doing with our fleets, the bus fleets, CapEx on that, what we're doing with vehicles and buses. So that's my synopsis and brief summary of this report. I'll take, our team will take any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I have to say it's probably one of the longest reports I've ever read in my life. It's very comprehensive and full, so thank you very much. Questions based on the report, please? Yep, go on.
Thank you. I just have a question about the objectives with the railroads and improving that. So in the report, it says about improving the accessibility of the stations and improving that. But my main question is about the capacity of the rail lines. Do you know any information about the capacity and how, because my main fear is, it says in the report, mentions greater capacity for available for freight trains, so that you want more freight trains on the lines. Where is it now and how are we going to get to that?
Thank you. Yes, rail is covered in our public transport chapter. It recognises the importance of both the bus and the rail. A lot of our local residents significantly rely on bus travel, but obviously rail is important. So in terms of the County Council's role, we can improve connectivity to those rail stations in terms of connections, our road connections, and we have to work with the rail industry to sort of make sure that the voice of Staffordshire is heard, that that the capacity that we need on the rail network is made by the rail industry, and that we mustn't forget that the local journeys made by Staffordshire residents are important, and it's about sort of lobbying the rail industry to create that capacity. And that there are, you're very right, there are capacity issues on the rail network, but it's important that we have that in our policy to sort of make sure national government understand the importance of rail in Staffordshire.
Thank you. Councillor Hardy, you have a question on?
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you. This LTP has been a long time coming. I know how much work that everyone has put into it. In October 2024, this committee heard about the progress with the LTP, and the vision at that time was an efficient net zero transport network that supports sustainable economic prosperity, health, safe and inclusive communities and excellent quality of life. And the vision in November 2025 is an integrated and efficient transport system that delivers economic prosperity, creates health and safe communities and protects the natural environment. So I think you can just see from just looking at the vision changes, the difference in perhaps political leadership of the council, which is fine because that's how it's meant to be. What I want to ask the question of really is perhaps not you, Annabelle, but perhaps the cabinet member, as to how a local transport system can protect the natural environment. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the work that needs to take place in order to create roads, deliver railway improvements, whatever else, may naturally have an effect on the environment. So the question is, how can the two statements be put in the same vision?
Yeah, we looked actually at the emissions of cars, and I do believe there was some faulty devices around Staffordshire, but we were looking actually for a histogram bar charts data for the actual pollution and backtracking that over the last 10 years to see where we were. We did see, obviously, that there has been a reduction, should we say, in CO2, whether that's because taking out the schools out of the monitoring that we do. But we did say Staffordshire is a rural community and people are going to want to use their cars. So we're trying to find the right balance here between keeping certain bus routes open. And even now we're looking at bringing in evening bus routes for nighttime economy. But people are still in Staffordshire going to want to use their cars. So it's a draft plan, but we have found that people in Staffordshire, and the report is saying that people will still be wanting to use their cars, especially to get to hospitals and drop off children at schools, etc. Thank you.
Does that answer the question okay?
I mean, does anyone else want to come in first? No? Okay. Yes, I still think there is a bit of a difficulty with the protection of the natural environment versus the kind of local transport plan. I think I know that politically net zero is not very popular at the moment and sustainability is perhaps not so popular in certain circles, but the local transport has a direct effect on emissions, air quality and also sustainability generally. Those words seem to fit better than protection of the natural environment. Natural environment to me is perhaps, there's a chemical spill and it's going into the ground and it's going into a receptor like the river, and you don't want that to happen, so you protect the natural environment in that way. Are you absolutely certain that protecting the natural environment is the correct wording for this particular plan?
I'll answer that too, because if you look yesterday, over the weekend, we want to talk about environmental crime. And so the way we look at, we're trying to get people to understand about where they live in Staffordshire, how they interact with the community, how they use their car, how they use heating. Obviously, energy costs are very high now. At the same time, there's still people dumping asbestos in laybys in Staffordshire. If you look at Kidlington on the news recently, there's a huge amount of environmental crime going on. So we want to keep educating the young people, discussing the transport plan and saying that, yes, you will be able to use your cars, and perhaps even in a transport plan, the next one, maybe people will even be having flying cars. Who knows what's happening in the future with regards transport. It's already happening in Dubai and other countries. We haven't gone that far, although we did mention it in Staffordshire, but it's a rural community. People want to get from north to south. We want to make sure people can come in and not get clogged up. Junction 13 is always in the news. There's always seems to be problems with Junction 13 on the M6. So yes, we believe people will be still using their cars, but there are, for example, to look at buses, smaller buses, smaller footprint, maybe the whole 14 people. We went up to Buxton. We had a look at the transport system there. They seem to be doing very well with smaller buses there than the huge buses. So that's what we're looking at. And we're not too much worried about long-term. Again, you mentioned the word net zero. We're looking at what we can do. It's a very detailed plan, I think. I don't think we need to get hung up on some of the words that you mentioned there, but I'll defer to my officers if they want to add any further comments on your question. Thank you.
The LTP will be protecting the environment, the natural and built environment. One of the priorities is making efficient use of our existing highway network. So it's making, using technology and traffic signals to improve the flow on our existing network. It's not a road building programme, so there aren't many schemes that are building on new natural land, but obviously we have to make sure that the local transport plan is accommodating new housing growth. So there will be new access roads to sort of significant housing growth, but it's all about infrastructure, light, and making sure that we make the right decisions and use fewer materials and maximise the use of our existing network, and giving people travel choices, making sure that everybody has the option to walk, cycle, go by public transport, so that people have got travel choices. So I think it does support an improved environment.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg was...
Thank you, Chair. Put me down for a flying car. I want one of those. I think we could all be the front of the queue for one of those to relieve the traffic problems we have on our roads. Brilliant. I think what we need to recognise is this strategy, which I know has been consulted on. It's been to this committee over a long period, a couple of years. Also, it went to the districts for their input as well, and I know Newcastle Borough Council was involved in submitting, and then that was in the springtime, wasn't it, probably? So I think this is long in the running, but I think it also needs to fit in with other strategies that we've got. Thinking of the strategic transport strategy, which has been agreed with the City Council, of course. We've also got later on the agenda the environmental strategy, which I'll comment further on then, as you'd expect. But I think that we have to be careful, and I think that this new administration has to be careful. It doesn't get hung up on what it calls things. I think linked to Strategic Plan 33, it says B, tackling climate change, enhancing our environment and making Staffordshire more sustainable are the relevant priorities to the local transport plan. And yet we have the environmental strategy coming later, which has those terms airbrushed from them. But then we have the Environment Agency, don't we, who've under the risk identified 32, the Environment Agency have commented that there needs to be a standalone mitigation adaptation priority relating to climate change, and I think that needs to be taken on board. Whatever you call it, it needs to be in there, and I know there's something in the environmental strategy next, but I think what we need to do is ensure we don't have too many conflicting words in strategies, or else that gets confused, particularly when we're looking for funding from central government, because we have to ultimately talk the government's talk on this, whatever government we have, and I think the government we got at the moment is under Ed Miliband's stewardship of the of the environmental policies has gone too far in the wrong direction. But if we want funding here to help us to enhance our transport plans and to move forward some of the agenda in this report, in this strategy and some of the wider strategies, we need to just be aware of that, and I hope the portfolio can reassure us that he's not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we are looking, and we have worked and we've discussed in detail with the officers the funding and the grants that they will get, and the impact that will have with what we're going to be planning for central government for getting the grants. And again, you mentioned, okay, the climate change. The climate does change. It's been changing for millennium. And we did say that perhaps you're getting hung up. We just said we wouldn't need a climate emergency, but we can plan for any changes over the next many years with if there is any increase in flood, or working with the Environment Agency, working with the central government.
Thank you. Councillor Bentley, do you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Looked at some. I mean, I live in sunny Cheadle, and a lot of the ideas I think will work. I mean, I've got a bus station, train station in Blythe Bridge that's very accessible from Cheadle with the right bus service, and the other side is like supermarkets, McDonald's. So when I was growing up, we used to go Anley to see the cinema, and we used to just jump on the bus. You just took it for granted it was every hour. Now we do seem to have to plan a little bit more, don't we? So, and then you go on holiday, and they seem to have them a bit more regular than ours. So you don't plan abroad, you just seem to turn up. But going forward, and I know we use different operators, could we put like apps on all the buses, doesn't matter who owns them, so everybody could access that app? Because no disrespect, the person isn't bothered who owns the bus that's coming, they just want to know a bus is coming, don't they? So to me, that would make, you know, you go to London, it's all one bus firm, isn't it, or one system. Well, we seem to have so many different systems, it gets a bit confusing. I don't know if that's something we could look at, and maybe like screens on bus stops where, I mean, everything's gone a lot cheaper now, hasn't it? So it works out a little bit better. I know it's probably a bit too low down the profile ladders, but that's the simple things. Thank you.
No, the LTP fully recognises the importance of information about our bus network, because we're not going to get anybody to use the buses if they don't understand how to use them. It's particularly important in somewhere like Staffordshire, because we don't have that 10-minute bus service. You have to plan your journeys, so you need to understand. We need the real-time passenger information, and we need people to know where to get that information from. So that is, you know, that is a key recommendation in the local transport plan, and it's also important that we invest in the right bus services and make sure that we grow our patronage and make sure that, you know, the right bus services are invested in. And then if certain communities you know, can't have a bus service, there's got to be other travel options for those smaller local communities that where there's not enough population to serve that commercial bus service.
You want another question?
Thank you. Yeah. I was just thinking out loud to myself then, like I say, we all want to move some of the bus stops around as well. Some of them have been in the wrong place for a long while now, haven't they? Because things have moved and things have altered. But I do know a bus company person, and he says it's very difficult to move things and do things. So this is the perfect opportunity, isn't it? And even like the cafes having the screens in the cafe, so you're sitting waiting for the bus. Because there's a difference between waiting in a cafe for a bus for an hour and a bus stop without a seat. But yeah, it seems like you're on it. But thank you very much for the report.
We have another question from side here.
Thank you, Chair. Right at the beginning, you spoke about working with partners. I was just wondering, can we have a bit more detail about how we work with the City of Stoke-on-Trent to bring the two plans so they align with each other? That would be my first.
Yes, we did develop a joint strategic transport statement with Stoke-on-Trent the beginning of this year. It is obviously it needs a few amendments to it to make sure it aligns with the new sort of the changes that we've made to the LTP since last March, but I'm in discussions with Stoke on agreeing that those new words. So at the moment it is an appendix to the LTP with a caveat that we're still just changing the words slightly to make sure that it sort of aligns with both Stoke's priorities and ours. But we are generally in saying the same thing. We're all about travel options and improving our transport network and bus services, etc. So we have got that statement in it as an appendix.
Okay, thank you. So when Stoke talking about potentially doing a Stoke to Stockton Brook line, we'd be fully aware of that and perhaps would put that into our plan about we would continue that on to perhaps Leek.
Yeah, we've got a paragraph in the local transport plan that gives our position on that line.
Absolutely.
Sorry, come back. Sue's just put something on the computer and it's caught my eye. My family's quite into cycling, and I've noticed obviously the electrical cycles are coming on now quite in leaps and bounds. I know it's not far-fetched, but some of the buses, if they allow cycles onto the buses, so technically you jump on the bus, do most of the journey on the bus, then you get your cycle at the other end. And that's the same with trains. Well, my father-in-law actively says it's very difficult to take the bike anywhere. He hasn't got electrical, he's just got a normal one, but you know, try and get it onto the train or get it onto a bus. People don't seem to want to do that, but that would help. That would be a really good joined up thinking. You know, me cycling from my house to Anley is probably a big ask, but if I could get within 4 miles of it, I would probably jump off and jump on my cycle and go through the city. So when we're thinking about smaller buses, what about making buses where they've got a bit more of an area where you can take stuff on that's like a bike or a baggage or whatever? Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of provision of buses that allow cyclists that are big enough for cycles to be stored on there, obviously that's up to the bus operators, but there are sort of alternatives that we could progress or pursue, is having secure cycle parking at bus stops is an option. If you're going for a leisure, if you want to take your bike to then go for a leisure cycle ride, that doesn't help you, does it? But if you want to have that connection to a bus service, we could improve cycle parking at bus stops is an option. And we can work with the rail industry to make sure that they improve cycle provision at rail stations and on trains.
Thank you. Any further, Councillor Wyman?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I did note in the report at 3.3.4, and it says, new road capacity will be a last resort and will focus on delivering access to new strategic housing and employment development sites. Does that mean that if, let's say, I'm going to use Burton as an example, there's capacity issues at major junctions. They're over capacity according to the modelling, and a new road may not be directly delivering access to new strategic housing. It may involve that, but it might not be the principal reason why you would build that road. Does that mean that this plan rules that type of new road out? And I ask that because I think the Cabinet Member for Strategic Highways might like a particular road in Burton. So if we need to increase capacity, it would be a shame if this report ruled it out by the wording that it uses. Thank you.
So since the version that you've seen at Scrutiny has obviously been amended, is going to be amended based on the public consultation. So there are some minor changes to some of the wording, and I haven't got the final version in front of me, but new roads will be delivered as required as long as they meet the objectives of the local transport plan. So sometimes new roads are required not just for car drivers. You might need a new road to enable an important bus service, etc., or a better connection for walking and cycling. So as long as it's multimodal, it hasn't been costed into the first 5 years of the programme because we don't know of any, we don't think there are any road schemes currently known that aren't linked to housing development that are required, but that doesn't stop that from happening in the future if there's a business case. But we've obviously got to try and think about the level of infrastructure and the level of funding that it will actually take to build a new road. So it's managing your existing infrastructure first before building new infrastructure.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the report that I'm looking at is the one that is in our committee. So I thought that was the, so it's going to go through another iteration, is it, from consultation? Yes, is that right? Yes, yeah.
We went to public consultation during September and October. So we've looked at all those responses. Appendix 4 to the scrutiny report outlines that response. So obviously we need to take into account those public consultation responses. So we've made some amendments, no significant amendments to the report. And that final report will be going to scrutiny to Cabinet in December. So that'll be in the public arena in the next few days.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is this, and it's been a concern that I've raised with you, Annabelle, for quite some time, is that whilst I very much support walking and cycling schemes to a certain extent, there are serious capacity issues within most of our large towns, Stafford, Burton, Newcastle probably, and some others. It would be sort of, we're missing a trick if we don't allow the local transport plan to support some capacity improvements across the network. And I don't want wording within the plan to prevent that from happening, because I think we all agree that in some certain cases we do actually need to look at that. I know on the last local transport plan, which was 10, 12 years ago now, there were individual local infrastructure plans, I think that's what they were called, for each of the local authority areas. And they actually specified the types of works that needed to take place to deliver access to strategic housing or to improve capacity across our towns. Is that process going to take place again? And the reason why I'm saying this, in Burton, there was a third lane proposed on St Peter's Bridge, Main A Road in Burton. That was never taken forward. It probably will never be taken forward at this point, but there may be a need to look at capacity improvements across Burton that are not just walking and cycling. And I don't want to have this report preclude looking at that and looking at the feasibility of that going forward. And that applies to both Burton, but Stafford, Newcastle, and whatever other capacity improvements we need to make. Thank you.
Do you have any further comments to make on that?
No, I can assure you that the wording in the local transport plan does not say that we can't build new roads if there's a business case for them and the value for money.
Thank you for confirming. Unless there's any further questions, I'm going to recommend that committee review and comment on the Staffordshire County Council's statutory local transport plan, which is consultation draft version, which provides a strategic direction for highways and transport investment in Staffordshire, and then to also thereafter review and comment on the outcome of the public consultation process, and then take it forward thereafter. Could I invite someone to move that motion, please, and second the motion? Thank you very much. I don't know if anyone wants. Yeah. I didn't mean everyone adjourn. I meant those involved aren't involved in the next session to adjourn. Just for
I think people meant it was a comfort break.
yeah. Oh, we'll have a comfort break then, by the sounds of it. Right, thank you very much. I think everyone enjoyed that quick comfort break. Right, moving now on to the environmental strategy, and again I'd like to invite the Cabinet Member to present that, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, we're going to now discuss the environmental plan. It's on page 356. I think it's easier to hear just to highlight a few things, and then I'll be taking some questions. So, the new vision, focusing on protecting and enhancing Staffordshire's environment, recognising the need to act for the benefit of the current and our future generations. The environment strategy sets out a clear framework of action built around 8 key priority themes to embed environmental considerations across all service areas. I will read through these. This is what we will be discussing today, I'm sure. Reduce Staffordshire County Council's overall environmental impact, ensuring services and communities can adapt to severe weather. Only last weekend, I do believe there was covered very well by, it was in our Keep Staffordshire Moving, there was 220 notifications and 131 classified as emergency. If you saw the Staffordshire County Council website today or yesterday about cutting down and making our highways clear again of trees that had fallen down due to storm Clarence or something, I've forgotten the name. Claudia. Is it who? Anyway, so one of the latest named storm that we had passing through over the last 2 days. So we also want to support economic growth. Again, we need economic growth to keep our children here in the future, or else they will look to go elsewhere in the world. We want to make sure that we still work with the local nature recovery. We have a lot of nature in Staffordshire. We want to make sure it stays and grows. Waste minimisation. This is clear, critical. We keep on talking about going to our supermarkets, looking at what's there, and this is an ongoing project about waste minimisation. Supporting access to affordable and reliable energy. I think that's very clear. That topic, I'm sure, is going to come up many times. It's already on the national debate. Assist in the delivery of multimodal transport system. We've just seen about that in our transport plan, combined with economic growth. And work with our partners to deliver innovative actions across growth, transport, energy, buildings, waste, and the environmental adaptation. So I won't read any more because it's already on the report. I think you can self-read that. So perhaps we should open up for questions on the draft environmental plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miners. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the portfolio for the introduction. I've read this new environmental strategy very carefully. And my first observations are that it's, despite obviously the rhetoric which we talked about earlier, and we've seen at full council about the new administration's position on the climate change issue, little has actually changed in this from the previous strategy that was brought forward by the previous administration. The structure, the themes, even the examples are broadly the same as the previous climate change strategy. And its detailed action plan, come onto that later. The only real difference is the removal of words, as I've said, such as climate change, net zero, and carbon reduction. And it's really, that is really the changes I see. Let's look at the main points here, really, of the new strategy, and let's see how they compare with the previous one. Severe weather adaptation. That's the old climate change adaptation policy that went through Cabinet many moons ago. Waste minimisation, the portfolio has just said how important that is. That's already covered under the circular economy and waste strategies that were brought forward previously. Partnership working, really key in this agenda of securing our environment and the future of our county. Staffordshire Sustainability Board was created under the previous administration and works in partnership with our boroughs and districts and others as well.
Can we move on to the question, please?
Yes, I can do, yes.
Yeah.
And also, I'm just highlighting here, Chair, I think it's important we highlight some of the points, and I think I'm allowed to make comments as well as make a question. Business engagement. We've got SBEN, green loans already, which is all about energy efficiency and moving businesses forward. Local energy networks, the portfolio talked about, obviously sustainable electricity. They're already in the pipeline to be looked at. Local nature recovery strategy, the portfolio holders mentioned that. That was well advanced by May, but has actually slowed in progress since. And then community engagement is a key part of this, to take people along with us. I think that's really important. And of course, the previous strategy had one of the highest participations in any consultation that this council has carried out. I think the issue of pushing renewables, we're all in favour of that, but how does that fit against the backdrop of the new administration's policy railing against renewables and battery storage outside of the council's control on other land? The previous action plan, Chairman, had 40 specific actions, clear timelines and annual monitoring reports. This new strategy that's brought to us now has none of those. There is promise of an action plan coming later, but I think it should have come to this meeting. I think this is the first scrutiny of this plan before it goes to Cabinet, and I think it should have come to that. So we've got that measurable commitments, the accountability, and know that the delivery is there for this plan as it goes forward. Also, funding is really important for this. Of course, there was a funding stream put aside by the previous administration year after year to take forward our policies. And we really, if the ambitions of this plan are to go forward, then the funding needs to be in place. Also, there's no community impact assessment, really disappointed in that. That's how we see an officer response to this strategy. Not political, not swayed by anything that the portfolio holder wants. It's an independent officer assessment on the major policy changes that are included in this. We don't see that. So closing, Mr. Chairman, the new strategy, I think, relies heavily on what's come before. And just as removal of the climate terminology and the net zero terminology. But I think what we need is more detail on this through that action plan, which should have come to this committee. I'll say that again, Chair. So I've got three questions, which I'll bunch together very quickly. What exactly is new in this strategy? I'd ask the portfolio holder. We know what's been taken out, but what's actually new from the previous strategy? 2, how will renewable energy success be measured without the emissions-based indicators that were in the previous plan? And why publish a strategy with 0 actions, 0 timescales and 0 monitoring? Thank you.
Thank you. If you would like to answer that, however, I just want to remind that we want to scrutinise what's on the table today rather than making references to previous entities. But if you would like to answer that, please.
Thank you very much. I take all of your points, and you mentioned about the climate. I think we just said we didn't want to have the climate emergency. There was too many things. I think perhaps we didn't want to go around with balloons and spending money about teaching people about a climate emergency. We still realize we have to look after the environment and the climate changes. There's still isostatic readjustment going on in Scotland at the moment. The climate does change. And we want to focus on these 8 priorities. I can defer to the officers to go through, particularly if they want to explain each one. But we are wanting to support the nature. We do want to minimize waste. And we do want to not affect the environment. We do want to leave Staffordshire as a nice place for our children. And we want to have affordable, reliable energy. There is some funding streams that we have spoken to the officers to be very, very careful about on how they report and pull through funding from central government. I will let them talk about that. And there are impact assessments coming, and we will still be reporting all of our figures. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any questions thereafter? Okie dokie. Just move on. I would just like to recommend that you consider and provide comment.
Chair. Sorry, Chair. I mean, I was waiting to see if anybody else was going to come in with any questions, because I think it's a really important issue, this. But if I can ask a follow-up question the portfolio. I don't think I really got the sufficient answers to the questions I put in, but I'll throw another one in there, and that is, why is there no community impact assessment to these proposals? And also the funding, again, I would say, will you be committing to fund this plan as the previous plan was funded?
Would you like to talk about what you'll be doing with the funding on that, James?
I would just cover off the community impact assessment first. There is a community impact assessment that will go alongside the Cabinet report, which is due to go on the 17th of December. As far as actions going forward, yeah, I know that probably come both at the same time would have been advantageous, but we really felt that we wanted to try and set the foundations here and have the scrutiny today to have that input. An action plan would follow. I think it was later on in the report that was tabled today said that we would be tabling an action plan in March 2026. The proposal is that action plan will come in front of this committee as well for that scrutiny and deeper dive. As far as budgets, that will be linked in to the action plan, clearly articulated. We'll monitor that very closely on a quarterly basis to ensure those actions are delivered. And it's really looking at what we can deliver in the short term, I think, looking at differences we can make today to make fundamental changes for tomorrow.
Just able to come back on that, because I think it will be over a year then almost since the last action plan on this important area of council business. It's not to James. James is working away, I'm sure, as he always has done on this agenda, but it's to the portfolio holder. It's almost a lost year under this new administration. Severe weather adaptation, waste minimisation, working in partnerships, helping businesses to keep their energy costs down, and we're having to wait a year for a new action plan from when the previous one was implemented. So I don't think that's acceptable. I think it should have come to this meeting and let's get on with this. And can I just finally say, Chair, I support us going forward with a new strategy. As we said at full council, we need a new strategy to be in place. I think all members want that, but let's be open and transparent about where we're coming from and where we're going to. And I think let's have a conversation about how we take this forward together as all members across the board. And I think waiting till it goes to Cabinet and then bringing everything to that isn't the way to respect scrutiny neither. And I think we need to respect scrutiny in this council, and that should be where we have all the information here that we can then give a view to Cabinet before it goes to Cabinet. Sorry to whinge, Chair.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't mind answering the further questions. Obviously, you, your family, everyone is living here in Staffordshire and they want to have a look at what the environmental plan is. At the moment, we have been actually working on waste minimisation. We haven't just been sitting around for 6 months. There's various things. Yeah, and we've been putting those through the Cabinet position. So we have been working on environmental issues, and there's been a number of things that we have been putting through for that. And I'm afraid, yeah, you will have to wait until we dig deep and look at a new environmental strategy that's coming up.
Thank you for that. I'd just like to remind everyone, please, that these scrutiny committees are meant to be apolitical and that we should be looking at scrutinising the recommendations put forward rather than relating to previous practices. But thank you very much indeed, however, for the comments. Thereafter, I recommend that the committee consider and provide comment on the environmental strategy, evaluate and provide comment on the 8 key priorities, themes, framing the framework for action, and consider and identify opportunities for integrating the environmental strategy into the flood risk management strategy, the local nature reserve strategy, and the local transport plan. Any additions to that, or are you happy to move that motion? Move the motion? Yeah, in a second. Thank you very much indeed. I would now like to move on to the next action point, which is the work programme, and invite Jacob to provide an update on the work programme report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There's been quite a few changes since the last meeting in October. So the digital annual report will now be considered as part of the Employment and Skills Strategy annual update. The Environmental Action Plan, which was alluded to before, is now scheduled for the 29th of January 2026. The Flood Risk Management Strategy as well has been moved from the 29th of January 2026 and is moved to the items for future scrutiny, which means it's due to be scheduled in due course. The Library Strategy, or Library Strategy as it's now known, has been moved from the 18th of December to the 26th of March, and as a result, the briefing that was scheduled for February has also been cancelled. There is a briefing outside of committee pertaining to planning, and that's scheduled for the 24th of February. That came from conversations surrounding the petition, which is to be received by committee this Thursday. The post-street lighting PFI contract model is a work programme item scheduled for the 26th of March. Promoting the workplace for young people, people not in education, employment or training and apprenticeships has been moved from the 29th of January to the 26th of March. Following recommendations agreed by committee, the County Council's Economic Strategy Delivery 6-month update will be received in the next municipal year, and the Staffordshire Highways Roadmap to a Better Road Network. It was originally called the Highways Transformation Programme, but it is the same item, and that has been moved from the meeting in December to February. Which leads on to the fact that there will not be a meeting in December because that's been moved from the 18th of December to the 11th of February, and the one in February is a 2 o'clock meeting. I'd probably also point your attention to recommendations previously made by committee and updates based on those. So there were 2 in October. There was 1 that relates to procurement of local and British products. I've now shared that with the whole committee, and it will be included in the agenda pack for the January meeting, the response to that recommendation, sorry, just to clarify. And the other one was in terms of the Cabinet Member for Connectivity. He agreed to the digital infrastructure recommendation with respect to amending the County Council's target for 100% gigabit capable broadband coverage in the county from 2030 to 2032, in line with the government's recently amended national target.
Thank you, Jacob. So not many updates there then. So, there's no exclusion of the public today. I'd just like to confirm the data.
Are we allowed to ask a question on the work programme, if I could? I'm just concerned, after the conversation we just had relating to the environmental strategy, is that the risk management strategy update in public, I know there's briefings for members going on as well, but I think in public that needs to be timetabled for a meeting, I think, pretty soon, because obviously we know, as the portfolio has said, we all experienced at the weekend, obviously the bad weather that led to flooding across the county. I think there's a lot of good work going on, and I know the team are working hard, so I'm sure they want to give an update, and sooner rather than later we need that flood risk management strategy update to come to this committee.
It will be received by committee. It's flood risk management strategy. Yeah, so it's been moved as an item for future scrutiny because the agenda for January has 5 items on it now, I believe.
Sorry, Chair, we're having 2 meetings this week, so we certainly could have 2 meetings that week, surely.
We are, but I've contacted relevant officers, and they originally informed me that January would be the earliest available date for the flood risk management strategy to be received. So that was before the 1st November. It was in between the October meeting and the 1st November meeting. But I'm happy to have that conversation with officers to try and see the earliest possible date to get it scheduled in due course.
Well, we'll take that conversation offline, discuss it later rather than now. So the date of the next meeting is Thursday, 20th of November 2025 at 10 a.m. County Building, Stafford. I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and input today. Meeting closed. Thanks.